Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, still taking issue with Batman Eternal. In the last issue, Batman teamed up with Killer Croc and Jason Bard to search the sewers for a missing young girl. Meanwhile, Batgirl, Red Hood, and Batwoman infiltrated a toy company using slave child labor. Unfortunately, the man who was behind the framing of Jim Gordon has just brainwashed Batgirl into attacking Batwoman and Red Hood, believing they are the two people she hates most. Surprisingly, one of them isn't Red Hood.
And so begins issue 19, Tim Seeley on script. Batgirl blames all the tragedy in her life and the framing of Jim Gordon on Joker and James Gordon Jr. Respectively, it's actually Red Hood and Batwoman. But either way, it's strange for her to be saying this stuff out loud. And I still don't think hundreds is grammatically correct when they talk about the subway tragedy. Her two targets reason that the same man who manipulated Gordon into seeing a gun that wasn't there way back in issue 1 must be the same kind of knockoff Hatter tech manipulating Batgirl's mind, making her see the two people she most wants to annihilate. Batwoman goes to find the culprit, while Red Hood tussles with his old friend. And hey, while I'm at it, I'll do my best to not die.
Please, by all means, don't trouble yourself.
Back in the Gotham sewers, Croc has apparently been leading Batman and Bard for miles in search of Jade. He leads them to a large hole in the wall, and Bard seems a little unsure. Guilt is what makes Batman trust the Man-Lizard, because Croc wasted time stalking the Dark Knight instead of protecting his downtrodden people. Kinda seems weird, since it'd be Croc's call to do the stalking, and just like with Catwoman and Dr. Phosphorus, no established context for these meager people with supervillain protectors. Croc shows off his trophy room, metal spheroid cages with corpses inside, Bard saying that one such corpse is what spooked him earlier before entering the sewers. Apparently they weren't people, but reanimated corpses, vessels filled with evil that returns to its source when they're killed. Batman only believes this because the black handprints in the sewers were also found by two men he does trust beneath Arkham.
I'm calling bull on this. There has been one communication between Batman and either of the two men he trusts, and that was Joker's daughter imitating Batwing, lying to him that there was no problem with Arkham. How is he getting this information, besides more bad writing and just convenience?
Croc cites something his Auntie Flowers told him once about Gotham being bad because it was built over hell, which Batman shoots down. These entities aren't from some mythological netherworld beneath the ground. They're invaders from another plane. Extra-dimensional aliens.
Okay, first off, you're falling back on the same twist people hated about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Secondly, Batman told Batwing outright that Gentleman Ghost was a straight-up ghost, that things existed despite not adhering to supposedly rational thought. He paired Luke up with the summer cottage for God's vengeance. Given all the crazy stuff Batman's seen, hell should be no less ludicrous a concept to him than beings from other dimensions.
Bats goes into an explanation that, according to his agents, they traveled through interdimensional doorways and stuff about osmosis and electromagnetism and all, but it doesn't really matter because no, they didn't say that because you haven't had any contact with them. Croc mentions that the creatures get weaker the closest they get to the surface, and Batman says his agents knew that, and so did Jade. Again, none of this is true, and again, it's all assumed nonsense pretending to be deductive reasoning. While Bard gets a closer look at one of the corpses, seeing one was an Officer Jack Boone, Bat says the entities are dragging people underground where they'll be stronger, and Croc knows a place that's deeper than deep.
It's likely the hole that DC higher-ups are digging for the publication, no doubt.
We jump to Blackgate, where Leo, the guy that is always pestering Gordon when he wants to be left alone, sure doesn't like the shoe being on the other foot, when Jimbo wakes him up for a chat. They smell burning plastic and hear shouting. They're about to have company. It's Warden Agatha Zorbatos, who is accompanied by a guard, Crocker, who locks down Block D, and a man called Roe, safely assumed to be Harper and Colin's father, who was only with them because he'd be dead otherwise. The Warden opens Gordon's cell, explaining that the Arkham War, a previous event, left Blackgate understaffed, overfilled, and with some damaged cells going unused. Matters were made worse with the addition of Penguin and Falcone's gang war crew. Fishnet Face, who really didn't need face added to his name, but whatever, was killed, and in the process of moving the body, the guards overlooked the Roman's calling card on his corpse, a rose. Marcus Rowe found it, and snitch that he is, figured it'd be a lucrative idea to sell this info to Cobblebot's men.
And yet his worst trait still manages to be being Harper Rowe's father.
The gang war has reignited inside the prison, resulting in dead inmates and guards used as hostages. They're trying to get into D Block, as it's the only way to access solitary confinement, where both gang lords reside. If they leave Carmine and Oswald, they'll likely be killed. Release them, and they'll use the situation to their advantage. Jim grabs a fire extinguisher, thinking that the inmates have moved back from the door and might be heading towards electrical. This gives him an opportunity to save the trapped guards.
Then later I'll blame myself for these riots. Gordon, away!
We take a break from anything interesting for a page about Harper Rowe. Sergei Alexandrov is marveling at the story of her using Gotham's power grid to create a defibrillator to save Batman's life, while she currently operates on Maxwell's bionics. Apparently, the genius who built them didn't leave enough for the primate to control grip strength, while Red Robin admits to seeing her aptitude for the impossible, because it's only important for the characters to say it, not for the writers and artists to show it. He's up for training her, but wonders if she's up for it, while she replies to the affirmative because she got so bored doing one thing, she routed the intercom to spy on their conversation while fixing the monkey's arm. Because of course she can.
We just wasted an entire page to just heap more undeserving praise on a character whose middle name should be God Mode the way she's being written.
Back in Rio, Red Hood is kicked off a balcony by Batgirl and onto a henchman below. This would probably kill the guy and likely immobilize Hood, but on at least one of those fronts we aren't so lucky. Hood skips the Portuguese as he gets up and orders the children out, shooting a gunman in the leg, but only because of a concussion since he aimed for his face, in a charming abandonment of everything Batman taught him. Batgirl presses her attack, calling him Joker, and Hood opens fire, noting she's too out of it to realize just how offensive that is. Aww, does someone need a safe space? Head of the operation, Dr. Falsario, watches the fight on a projector held up by one of his child slaves, remarking how Batgirl is toying with Red Hood. To the side, we see at least one kid inside a small cage. Sheesh. He approaches Projector Kid with a knife, ordering Batwoman out of the shadows. If not, I spill the child's life on the floor. That is actually a pretty good villain line. Standard threat with a dash of poetry. Good on you, Falsario, you twisted slaver scumbag. He talks to Batwoman as if he knows how she was trained, to watch his eyes for sudden movements and such. That's when he tries his hypno-shtick. That doesn't work, as B-Woman's old job involved trafficking derivative supervillain tech, some of which she took when she left, such as lenses protecting from Mad Hatter's hypnosis and some fear gas from Scarecrow, which she's already used on Falsario, so he sees her as a pretty slick-looking demon. About to be arrested for the railway disaster, the villain orders children out of nowhere to attack Batwoman, as he claws at the face he copied from Gonzalo Dominguez, and utters to a devil that he made the policeman see what you wanted.
Where did those other children come from? I mean, yeah, we saw one locked up because we need to know just how cruel this twisted slime ball is, but how did he get out?
Batgirl is still after Red Hood, who, with all the kids cleared out, can now resort to a new tactic other than get knocked around like a rag doll. Dang it, he knows how strongly and hard-written the suggestion is that he is someone that hurt her deeply. But he knows for her everything else is too. He starts describing a party at Wayne Manor one stormy night years back. She wants Joker to shut up, but no such luck. Even after punching him so hard, his helmet shatters. While the adults were in the kitchen, they shared a dimly lit living room, and she was constantly looking away. He took it as nervousness, that she liked him. But when asked what was wrong, her reply was that he'll never be Dick Grayson. With her photographic memory, she recalls everything, sights, sounds, backgrounds, but Jason says he remembers important things. Not the value of Batman's teachings, of course, but the day he met Batgirl. It's this sentiment that brings Batgirl back, and she realizes who she's been fighting. Batwoman is subduing the attacking children, who seem down to 2 now from the previous 4. While Falsario mutters about copying the gimmicks of the stronger, smarter people who always hurt others. He even showed people weaker than him how to make such copies. With a flash of a power glove he must love because it's so bad, he jumps out the window. Batwoman radios for Red Hood, getting a right-in-her-head Batgirl instead. Falsario is getting away, so B-Girl gives chase. A fire rages outside Blackgate, while inside, inmates are pondering killing the guards. By the bird ink on their arm, it's safe to assume they're Penguin's men. One man, Volt, suggests an Officer Leonard, with a pregnant bride, and is friends with Gordon.
Oh, Carl's last name is Leonard, not Winslow. So much for my theory that this was some horrific prequel to the show Family Matters.
Carmine Falcone's men walk the halls looking to kill some of Penguin's crew, when they're disturbed by an errant mop bucket wheeling towards them. A mist develops, blinding them to a series of punches and one fire extinguisher that Gordon calls the Windy City Special.
So, cops in Chicago have a lot of time on their hands to develop whimsical ways to distract criminals?
Underneath Arkham, separate from the underneath Arkham where Batwing and Corrigan are, we see a crane, what looks like a subway car, and 2 pillars suspending the missing girl, Jade, who was at the mercy of the Ten-Eyed Man, and some ghoulish figures to boot. They're surrounded by a pool of some strange, blood-colored substance. He says that in exchange for Jade's pure soul, a mysterious voice will give him clarity of sight, which prophesizes a doom coming for Gotham. She replies by spitting at him, apparently not a fan of exposition.
Trust me, kid, with this series I can relate.
Above them, although detected by Ten Eyes and his chattering ghouls, Croc, Bard, and Batman, which sounds like an unfunny sitcom coming soon to CBS, maybe NBC, are about to descend upon them, the lieutenant climbing down while Bats and Croc take the express elevator known as Gravity.
Batman, you got any spare bat grapple thing? No? Okay, I'm just gonna get down eventually. Superman!
Issue 20, Seeley still on script, opens on Brazil's Tijuca rainforest at night, as Dr. Falsario is stalked by Batgirl, who exposits what readers already know about her dad's frame-up. This scene is short-lived as we jump back to Batman and Croc fighting the evil-fueled corpses, or interdimensional entities, or what have you. Ten-Eyed Man is beginning his ritual as Jade calls for help. Croc threatens Ten Eyes with a corner in his trophy room, while Bat says he'll be headed back to Arkham. A disagreement I'm sure they'll resolve with rock, paper, throw you through a wall. A portal opens as Bard takes out a ghoul, and it's about to accept Jade as payment for the sight Ten Eyes seeks. Bats fires a grapnel that snares the girl, and without her soul, the portal reacts violently, closing in an explosion that briefly causes everyone to look like photo negatives. The cavern is about to come down, so Croc tosses an unconscious Jade over to Bard, before he and Batman leap over the gap. Ten-Eyed Man is left behind, saying a totem will be etched in flesh with blood, and Gotham's watchful moon will go dark.
This is how you lost that job writing fortune cookies, dude.
We return to Blackgate, as Maggie Sawyer is negotiating with Vault, who wants Falcone's life for those of his prisoners. At the solitary confinement cells, Marcus suggests they make way for Canada, and Warden Zorbatos reminds us he's a stool pigeon and adds that he has a death sentence.
Which is something else that they bring up without any precedence and has no bearing on the story. I have lost count of how many times this story has done that.
The warden gets a call from Harvey Bullock, telling them about the demands from Penguin's crew. When she says Gordon went all die-hard, Harv tells them to sit tight in the meantime. As they settle in to protect the confined crime bosses, they notice that Jim's cellmate Leo is strangely absent, and we see someone with a razor in front of a sink.
Now, turn into a tiny robot and help me bust out. That commercial lied to me.
As Penguin's men prepare to kill a guard, someone sets off the sprinkler system and throws a leaking nitrogen canister. We see Leo finishing his shave, revealing some facial scars, singing "In the Jungle," and we see both his dentures and a lion tattoo. One of the inmates is explaining how the liquid nitrogen is pulling the oxygen from the air and creating the icy decor, because that's something I can see someone saying in the heat of that moment. Gordon rushes them wearing an oxygen mask and still brandishing his extinguisher. Leo compliments his own looks while he opens a box containing different, significantly sharper dentures.
I want his dental plan.
Back in the rainforest, Falsario wonders aloud if he lost Batgirl, but then remembers there are 3 with heads of flame after him and screams why the demons are pursuing him. Batgirl hears a much more blood-curdling scream and soon finds her quarry dead. The only clue is a knife sticking out of a tree several feet above her head. In Gotham's underground, Croc, Jade, Bats, and Bard plunge into the waters below as rubble falls around them. After getting to dry land, Croc says it's time to split, but Bard disagrees. Waylon Jones is under arrest for the suspected murder of 3 cops. And because building tension over so many subplots is so much fun, we jump back to Blackgate, where Gordon has taken out the last of Penguin's crew before getting tased by Falcone's people. And because anyone can be a detective when this story needs exposition, the goons note how he got the liquid nitrogen from the basement holding the Court of Owl zombies and used pedals from the stationary bike for traction on the ice. But before they can take hostages of their own, they're taken out by a newcomer, someone everyone thought was dead, Rex Calabrese, the Lion.
The build-up for the Lion at this point is actually a really strong element in this series. They talked about him in the proper context to the shifting power struggle in Gotham's criminal underworld, and they were subtle in giving him the pseudonym Leo, which doesn't yell in your face that it's the astrological sign for the lion. So it's kind of a plus. How it plays out for the rest of the series remains to be seen.
Back underground, Bard says that 2 officers and a SWAT captain were found amongst Croc's trophies, and they were last seen at Gotham's Harbor sewer entrance. Croc owns up to their deaths as he sets Jade down, saying they were dirty and deserved what they got, but Bard is going to let a court decide that. Not allowing himself to be judged, Croc orders Jade to run to the Bat as he strikes support beams behind him. As a resultant hill of rock covers Waylon's escape, Bard is, shall we say, hesitant to let him leave. Bat tells him the area is unstable, and if they don't leave now, they never will. Go directly to jail, do not collect $200. SWAT is subduing inmates as Zorbatos commends Gordon for his efforts. Jim says he's just an inmate paying for his crime, but Agatha points out that Carl Leonard's wife and child may think differently. At first, she was happy to see the man that kicked her from the force in her prison, but she seems to have had a change of heart. Before she can finish, Gordon excuses himself to confront his blood-covered cellmate. Calabrese says that he may not have done everything people thought he did, but he deserved to be in prison, even in obscurity under a pseudonym, however he managed that. His actions in the riots weren't about helping Jim, but because Rex's daughter grew up without her dad, and didn't want that for Barbara.
So he knows Jim has a daughter, he knows her name. Does he not know that she's basically an adult? Don't get me wrong, it would still be devastating to her if her dad died, but she would hardly be growing up without him.
Speaking of, Batgirl is watching Batwoman assure the child slaves that their testimonies will shut down the factories they've been working in, and for now, they should be with their families. Babs tells Hood that an assassin got to Falsario first, but he responds that it doesn't matter. Batwoman managed to pull enough evidence from the computers to clear her dad. She's grateful enough to hug him, though I still find it difficult to understand anyone wanting to make physical contact with Jason Todd. Ow! Watch it with the ribs there. Oh, she's hurting him too. That makes much more sense. In Gotham, Batman watches emergency workers take care of Jade, telling Penny One that he may have been right about Bard. He replies he found out high tea from a couple of issues back wasn't what he thought, and if Bruce wants, he can share in the hangover breakfast he prepared for Julia.
It's when I prepare scrambled eggs, lean ham, and crash cymbals together every 5 minutes.
In a cafe, Stephanie Brown is posting online about how there were professional critics before anyone with a keyboard could review a movie. That doesn't affect me since I'm reviewing a comic. One such critic famously said, "Critics have no right to play spoiler." She disagrees with this notion, saying, "Why spoil something unless you hated it?" That's what her blog was about, revealing secrets for public consumption before the sanitization of a PR statement. Yet, in such dire crisis, no one's listening, taking anything she posts about her dad and his cohorts as more tabloid fodder. Would have been nice if they had bothered to show us this more so it would have better context and more weight, but all we got was Vicky Vale turning up her nose. So Stephanie is on her own, and the issue ends with a splash page showing off her new costume, saying that to anyone who thought she would just disappear, spoiler alert, no damn way.
Yeah, I think spoiler alert is a terrible idea for a catchphrase. Not that I think Stephanie ever needed one. I know she's spoiler, so some people think it's a cute idea, but honestly, everyone already uses the phrase already. There's nothing creative or clever about it. And it makes her feel more dated than anything from her 90s origin. And that was the 90s. But her costume is actually kinda good, which is saying something considering the varying levels of atrocious, lazy, and mediocre that the New 52 redesigns often bring. Yes, it's largely black, which is an irritatingly consistent theme there, but it does harken back to her original spoiler costume and her tenure as Batgirl. One particular drawback, though, is that the mask is far too much like Glue Masters for my taste, which is an element that may come up later in the review. Also, I made a point earlier about how weird her blogs felt to me, and it's culminated to this. She has now become the spoiler after trying to reveal to everyone her father's plans. A criminal involved in citywide conspiracies, yet revealing his identity reveals her own. For someone trying to stay on the down low, she's being pretty sloppy with the whole secret alter ego thing.
Which brings us to issue 21, James Tynion IV on script, with a cover that looks like it would make a pretty slick movie poster. Vicky Vale is in her apartment, visited by Jason Bard, and by the looks of that lip lock, they're either an item now or one of them is very European. Bard says that his position as commissioner should be finalized soon, even working things out so Vale gets the exclusive for the Gazette. He didn't want it to be a big show, since he's not interested in glory. And it would seem insensitive. You know, what with Jim Gordon having just been found guilty of 123 counts of manslaughter, serving a life sentence in Blackgate.
So, what about the other 39 dead and the 30 injured? Was he cleared of those? Yay?
Bard mentions there's another new development, one that Vicky isn't going to like. It's a suspenseful phrase like that which all too often propels us to a completely different scene. In Blackgate, Carmine Falcone gets dressed in civilian attire, chatting it up with the newly revealed Rex Calabrese. The recent riot was more about expediting Carmine's extradition to Hong Kong, but he also wanted people to remember to fear him. Rex suggests that he lost, but Carmine also points out that he's going back to an empire in Asia, and now knows the lion, whom he thought he'd killed, is alive. I don't lose. This city won't let me lose.
At crime, I win. At poker, I win. At Clue Jr., ho, you bet I win.
After the customary threatening of Rex and his loved ones, Carmine walks out, thanking Warden Zarbatos for arranging that meeting. She evidently turned down a sizable payoff from Penguin for another shot at the Roman, which was less about coming to her senses, while she hooks a latch around the Kingpin's belt loop, and more about a visitor that wanted a chat before his escort to the airport. Is that someone possibly named Melvin? No, it's Batman, having lifted Falcone with a winch on the Batplane, punching the mobster on arrival. You lied to me.
It's always sad when an ugly lie shatters the trust between a gangster and a vigilante.
Despite Carmine saying he was not behind framing Jim Gordon, Bat says a knife was found in the chest of the guy who warped Gordon's mind, Jose Fernandez, aka Dr. Falsario, even though it was actually stuck in the side of a tree and Falsario's blood was emanating from his neck or head. Specifically, it was a ceremonial knife passed on through generations of Hong Kong crime lords. The Roman laughs off the notion he was behind it all, and that Batman hasn't figured it out. The Roman doesn't know either, but he gives Bats a special invitation he received, speaking of the devastation of Gotham City and the fall of Jim Gordon. The rest is up to you.
Black tie, no +1, BYO minions, hors d'oeuvres and champagne to be served. Snazzy.
Falcone says he was wondering whatever happened to that knife, which feels extra convenient, and that Batman must know what this revelation means. This is just the beginning, which feels like the second or third just the beginning now. Anyway, at the GCPD, Bard is settling into his new office when Bullock arrives. He says that with the previous 2 commissioners behind bars, the mayor needed good press, and he found it in Jason Bard. Harv can see the kind of man he is. Together, they can put the city back on track. Instead of trying to fill someone else's shoes, he should make his own.
Jason Bard, cop, commissioner, cobbler.
Harvey leaves, telling his new boss to do his best, and a moment later Batman arrives, concurring that Bard cannot replace Jim Gordon. The new commish takes it as the closest thing to a congratulations he's getting, but Batman says he doesn't trust him, and then hands him a bat thumb drive with the evidence to clear Gordon.
Yep, that's what the world's greatest detective does, hand over sensitive information to people he doesn't trust. Next week, he'll hand over some spare keys to the Batcave to Lex Luthor.
Seriously, if he doesn't trust Bard, he could at least trust Harvey Bullock, who he knows is Gordon's friend. Anyway, he says knockoff Hatter Tech made Gordon see a gun that didn't exist, but not the fuse box that was behind it, kicking off a city-crippling conspiracy. Which, again, isn't accurate because Gordon talked about the box after the crash, meaning he knew it was there. When asked who's behind it, Batman is silent, telling Bard he doesn't know. What he does know is that even though Jimbo isn't getting his unjustly taken job back, he's an ally they'll need. Bard is out the door, saying it's the beginning of a new era of doing things great together. And cue silent exit. Extra expected now that he's commissioner. At Wayne Manor, Julia feels like her father is avoiding her, slinking off over the past several weeks of her recuperation, even though he convinced her to stay in order to get to know each other better. And here I thought it was from the wounds from a sword through her gut that made her stay. Anyway, Alfred wants them to be closer, but can't find the words to explain it. I think I know what'll help.
Come on, you can do this. I'll draw fingers for wrong answers if need be.
Their conversation is cut short by mansion security. Alfred orders the computer to initiate lockdown, but it doesn't comply, while Julia reveals she's had her sidearm with her the whole time. The gun apparently makes her feel safer in a terrifying mansion. Alfred opens a bust of William Shakespeare, a nice subtle nod to the 60s series, and presses a fingerprint scanner, opening a safe room. Julia walks in, then her father apologizes for having to postpone their talk, judo chopping her at the neck to knock her out. He takes her gun and overrides the non-compliant computer to lock the safe room. Now that's parenting. He walks through the manor, announcing his abilities, such as what he can do with a single bullet to the intruder's C7 cervical vertebrae, for threatening his family. But for this shameless self-promoting, when he does fire a shot, he hits a door.
Whew. Pine Sol ain't fixing that door or his pride.
The trespasser surprises Alfred from behind, saying he's the target, not his family. Knocking away his gun and elbowing him in the face, the unseen foe brandishes a fear toxin syringe, warning it's going to be excruciating and unending. A splash page reveals the invader is Hush, Bruce Wayne's childhood friend, Tommy Elliot, as he jams the needle into Alfred's head?
Jeez! You couldn't have gone for the neck or the arm or something for the guy you supposedly like?
Julia wakes up just in time for a jump to Blackgate Pen, where Falcone recovers from his meeting with Batman, and Jason Bard hands Warden Zorbatos release papers. For him? Inside the prison, Agatha is hesitant, but Bard tells her that if she wants to keep her job, in spite of the recent riots, she'll cooperate. We see Jim Gordon in his cell, only for the pair to walk right past him. They reach their intended cell, and Bard requests some privacy. After Agatha leaves, the new commissioner tells the inmate that the next phase of the plan has set everything in place for him to act. We jump briefly back to Wayne Manor, because this hasn't gotten tired yet, or sloppy, or repetitive, and Julia has freed herself from the safe room, finding her father in agony. She calls an ambulance and Alfred is barely able to form words. Grandfather clock, 10:48. I don't understand.
Just the grandfather clock at 10:48. What's not to understand?
Back in the prison, Bard tells Zachary Gate that it's time for his role, handing him a bag with a steampunkish suit, and that after months of building towards this moment, they need an architect. Later, outside, Bard is on the phone with his mother, note the quotation marks, saying that the stage will be set for everything to come, and Batman doesn't suspect a thing. Gotham belongs to us now, he coldly states, breaking the thumb drive to exonerate Gordon.
Yeah, Batman doesn't suspect a thing. I mean, he doesn't trust me, so he'll probably suspect something the second he discovers his best friend is still locked up. But what do we have to worry from a ninja that can appear and disappear without a sound and has his own personal squad of vigilantes as well as the Justice League on speed dial? Should we maybe rethink this?
Tune in next time where more things that should be rethought won't be.